Hello, hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the fifth interview of the co-authors of the book Find Yourself, a guide to nurture self-love, boost self-confidence, find your voice, and use it authentically. Our book, which has been written by 11 amazing life coaches, will be launching on the 15th of July at 2 p.m. Central European Time as ebook and paperback. And on Amazon, it's going to be on a very special price for everybody who has interest in buying it first. And I know a lot of the authors also have a special offer for those interested. They are also going to be sending the paperbacks. So watch out, because there's only a limited number of paperback books at this time. My name is Dr. Laura Götz. I am a gynecologist, a therapist for women in all stages of life, and an author coach. And a couple of months ago, I contacted 10 other amazing life coaches so we can, birth this amazing book in order to help people come out of this whole pandemic situation with a lot of positivity, with good thoughts, with another mindset. We want to help people, and especially women from all over the world, feel more comfortable in their own bodies and have a very healthy and happy life. Like I said, today I am honored to have in this, live session, author Emma Hillman, a British citizen living in Spain. Hello, Emma.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for inviting me for the interview this afternoon.
Thank you very much for coming. I am so excited to have Emma here because we will be talking about a very, very important theme in today's society. We're going to talk a little bit about sexual abuse, about sexual predators, okay? So it's not going to be all happy feelings and it's not going to be a very pleasant chat. But I do think it is important to talk about this because it is happening, and a lot of victims just think that they are alone, that nobody's hearing them, nobody's going to believe them. So that is why they do not speak up. And that is why I'm so happy that Emma is there, as the poster girl for this book. She has so much strength after suffering for so many years, with the self-doubt and the fear of having gone through this and, not being able to talk about this. But now she has opened the gate to so many other women. And that is why I do believe that we should applaud her for being here and sharing her story. So, Emma, I think the audience really want to know more about you. How are you today? Share us about your family, about your 4 amazing children, and of course the beautiful life in Spain.
Oh, thank you, Laura, for that amazing introduction. So, yeah, I live in Spain. I live all together with my parents, my husband, and our 4 beautiful children, who are 10, 6, 4, and 1 year old. My husband and I had a bit of an interim going through fertility treatment to add to our family. So we had our first baby completely naturally, and then we had a bit of a trouble conceiving again, and it polycystic ovarian syndrome. Possibly a story for another time.
Yeah, definitely. As a gynecologist.
But then I had an amazing fertility doctor, and he really helped my husband and I to conceive our next 2 daughters. And then we had our little boy that was conceived in Spain, completely naturally, no problem. We do tend to joke about that, maybe it's something in the Spanish water, we don't know. But yeah, our family now is complete. So yeah, having a really, really lovely time out here in Spain, and touch wood, life is good right now. So I cannot complain.
Yay, perfect. This is like very good news because I do want to present, the other side of the story, the other side, of victims' lives. You don't get traumatized and then lock yourself in the closet and then life, as you know it, is at an end. No, there is life after sexual abuse. Once you regain your power, when you reclaim your power, then everything starts to work out, and then you can have an amazing family and an amazing number of children. So, Emma, I am so happy you decided to contribute with your story to this book. And I think that the audience also want to know, why did you decide to share your story in your book? Why are you doing this? Are you doing this for you? Are you doing this for other people? What's the story behind this?
Well, it all came about just over 2 years ago. So I recently had qualified as a life coach, and I was taking on a few free case study people to, practice my coaching skills and everything else. This guy asked me very kindly if I'd mind giving some coaching to his cousin because he could see the benefit in it, and she was having a hard time and everything. And I didn't know at the time that she had actually been a victim of sexual abuse herself, and as a result of that, then helped with the British police to help other victims to come forward and support them to make that decision, to actually go to the police and say, yeah, this thing happened to me. What happened to me was I had told myself this story in my head that wasn't true, that had prevented me coming forward a lot sooner. So I was sexually assaulted from the age of 18 to 19 over a 6-month period. There was mass confusion that came around because of this. And I just went through life just trying to get on with my life, hoping that if I just tried to get on with life, it would go away and I could forget about it and move on. But it never fully left me, and it impacted my emotional, like my personal relationships. It affected my working relationships, and I started to have huge barriers and blocks in life that I didn't even realize I was throwing out there, because I was just so afraid of fear of judgment from other people, which all manifested as to what had happened to me. So fast forward to just over 2 years ago, so I was coaching this lady, and the subject of fear came up, and I said, I used to have this huge fear of judgment of other people, which actually through coaching has become less and less now. And she said, oh, where did that come from, if you don't mind me asking? And I said to her the same spiel I told to anyone else that I felt comfortable talking to about it. And I said, when I was a teenager, I was sexually assaulted by my martial arts instructor, but too much time has gone by. At the time, 15 years had gone by. It'd be a he said, she said situation. No one would believe me. And I told myself this story for years and years. And then I made myself believe it. And her reaction, because I didn't know at the time everything she'd been through, she literally just said to me, she said, Emma, you do know that just simply is not true. So that really took me back. And I thought, I was like, oh, I'm not quite sure what you mean. And then she opened up her own experience. We ended up having a 4-hour-long conversation, because it was the first time I actually felt comfortable opening up to somebody, because I realized, this is somebody that has worked with the police to help victims, has been a victim herself, and I'd never experienced that before. And because of her candidness and openness with me, it made me instantly relax and actually start to talk about it, because she started to probe more and actually ask me questions. It was the first time I was actually talking about this in detail to anybody. And the next day, she urged me to go to police, because she said he seems to fit the profile of somebody that could be a repeat offender. I'd never really considered this before. I always thought it was like a personal vendetta against me, like I did something wrong. I had really bad guilt and shame, which I now realize I should never have been made to feel like that, because I did actually do nothing wrong. And yeah, so the next morning I literally picked up the phone and I spoke to the police. And that's how it all started. Like I literally just started to talk about what happened to me, and I just want to assure people who maybe have been through a sexual assault experience, are traumatized as a result of that, and not quite at that place where they feel like they want to talk about it, that you don't have to go to law enforcement. You can go to a therapist, you can go to someone that you trust, and somewhere that's private and confidential. I went to police because I was assured by this woman that he fits a profile, of that it could have happened to someone else. And just the thought of this having happened to someone else, because of how devastating it was to me, was really what prompted me to go to police. And the coaching, I think, really helped me get to that place as well. So there were tools I learned to become a life coach that I used with myself to give me the courage to be able to be like, okay, this is a really big step out of my comfort zone, but it's a necessary one, and I'm really not ever going to be able to fully heal from this until I can actually start to do this. Like, this is a necessary step. Like, the time had come that it felt right, that and I felt strong enough to be able to come forward and get the ball rolling and everything. And that's why I'm so passionate now about sharing this in the book, because my message to people would be, if you are in silence, there are so many avenues that you can go down to help yourself. You know, you could find a coach or a therapist. You know, you don't have to go to the police. You know, there's no hard and fast rule that says, you know, like, oh, you're doing an injustice to potentially other victims if you don't go to police with this, because I appreciate just how hard it is to be able to discuss these things. And of course, you know, after all these years, you know, there was no solid evidence. All the evidence was gone. But when the police turned around to me and they said, "We believe you," it was such a relief, because I just had this solid belief in my mind I just wouldn't be believed. And when they said that, you know, "We believe you," it actually helped me to relax and open up more, and then trust the police more, so that I could give them all the information they needed to give, that they needed from me. And as a result of me coming forward, yes, the case didn't go to court because lack of evidence, but they said, because of my because of like how I described what had happened to me, it was enough for them to put in place measures that make sure that if any other victims do come forward now, they are better protected, and that I've protected potentially future victims from this guy as well. And the police said that that is something I should feel very proud of. And it's taken me a long time actually to process that, but I can actually say now that, yeah, I do feel proud to have done this. And I always kept thinking, like, I really want to just share my story in a really powerful way, but I don't really want to focus so much on the details and drama of what happened to me, because that's not the key issue here. The key issue is how I then took steps to help myself really begin to heal from this. And my only regret is that I didn't know back then what I know now, because I maybe would have come forward to police sooner, or spoken to somebody, you know, or recognized even that I was a rape victim, because I didn't even realize that I was a victim of sexual assault and rape. I knew that what had happened to me, I didn't want to happen, but I had this really warped belief that because I couldn't verbalize a lot of the time, because I was in trauma response, I was in a freeze response, that I couldn't actually say, "Get off me." I you know, like, I literally just froze and totally locked up. And I've since gone on to learn about, you know, like the vagus nervous system, and, you know, we have fight, flight and freeze response, because when I did martial arts, we only ever learned about fight or flight. No one ever trains you about what happens when you freeze. You know, you're never going to go to a martial arts class and a teacher's not going to turn around and say, "Okay, everyone just lie on the floor and then have your partner lie and don't do anything," you know, because a lot of the time the response is it's sheer terror to a point that you're just frozen. And because that's why I used to just, I'd be like, why didn't I'd replay the memories and be like, oh, why didn't I do this, or why didn't I try and run or fight harder? And the times that I did try and fight back were worse for me, because it was all about pain and the amount of pain he could inflict on me, and the more pain he could inflict on me, the more he got off on it. So I literally over time, over this 6-month period, it just ground me down to the point of where I was literally just like so numb on the inside. It was like I was a robot, like it was robotic. It was just part of a habitual thing that I was going through, that I didn't understand and I couldn't break free from. And if people can read my story and perhaps recognize something in themselves, or they think that actually feels similar, like that's similar to me and how I feel, then you know, maybe it'll just help people, give them enough courage to use their voice, to speak their truth, and then release the trauma. Because for me, it's been in talking about the truth that I've really found that I've released all that stuck trauma, you know, and I don't get panic attacks anymore. I don't get the flashbacks anymore. you know, if the thoughts even come into my mind of that time back then, they're so diluted that they don't even affect me so much, because my brain's compartmentalized it. But I had to talk about it for my brain to be able to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course it makes sense. This is why we are having all of these interviews, so we'll let people know, you know, talking about it and actually being aware of what has happened. You know, that's the first step in healing past trauma, no matter what it is. And you know, it's just incredible that you shared your story, you know, in so little time, but with so many details. And I can assure you, the people, you know, the victims will recognize themselves, you know, in these 10 minutes when you talked about the sexual abuse we've been through. And what was for me like a very important point here, the victim always thinks that they are to blame. Yeah, they have these thoughts in their head, and they think that they're stupid. You know, how could this happen to them? And if they talk, then again they're stupid again, because they're talking. Nobody's going to believe them, and they keep having these bad thoughts. And they a lot of them just decide to flee from the whole situation. We have a lot of patients who yeah, forget what happened, and maybe in other parts of their lives, another point in their life, it all starts coming back. For example, I've had patients who were giving birth, who just at that point remembered that they were sexually abused as children. I had a Filipino woman, and she was sold, you know, as a sex slave when she was 6, and it was awful for her. So having to remember that during such a traumatic experience, childbirth, it really impressed me. So that's why I do so much work with women. And you are, like I said, you are like a spokesperson in this matter, and you're doing a great job just sharing your story with everybody. So Emma, you said a little bit about, you know, when it all happened. I do believe it is very important to talk about this moment, so that women realize, aha, okay, so it is not, you know, sexual abuse doesn't just happen like this. It doesn't come out of nowhere. Predators are predators because they premeditate their actions, you know. They don't see a woman on the street and, oh my God, this is happening right now. The pathology is in them since a long time, and a lot of the time they have even planned years ahead for this to happen. So just if you can tell us a little bit of how it all happened at the beginning, so we, you know, we can visualize more, like people who have been through this, they can realize, okay, so this is what happened to me too, and it wasn't, how can I say this? It didn't happen like this, but maybe the motive has been there for a longer time.
Yeah, so I had actually done martial arts with this guy for years before, so from the age of 12. But the moment, literally, that I turned 18, it started. The first thing was a birthday card from him himself that said love with his name in, and 2 kisses, and an assurance that by the time I was 21, you know, I'd be black belt, I'd be teaching martial arts. And it had been a dream of mine from such a young age to be a martial arts instructor. You know, I was watching all the films and the culture, you know, and my dad, bless him, just before my 18th birthday, actually, he decorated my bedroom. You know, he got a feng shui consultant, and they decorated it, and it was all a big surprise and everything. You know, it was like I was eating, sleeping, dreaming martial arts. You know, it was just my world. And so I got this birthday card, and I had never had a birthday card before, so I didn't twig that straight away. And it wasn't signed from everyone in the class, but it was signed from him specifically. And obviously you've got the word love in there as well, which I look back at now and I'm thinking, if that was to happen now, I'd have alarm bells ringing and be like, that's not normal. that's a bit weird. But of course, you know, I was 18, just turned 18. I'm still a virgin. I hadn't really had a boyfriend. I was really naive about the whole having a relationship thing, totally. And I think that's what he fixated on, you know, the fact that I was so naive. And then, you know, it was the whole thing of him talking to my parents and saying I was doing really well with my training. I was one of his star students. You know, I think I was the only young woman in the class at that time, in a class of adult men. So, you know, that's quite a big thing to put on one's young shoulders. And so he said, you know, I'd really benefit from extra tuition, and he did like private lessons at his house at the time, and you know, lots of students went there, and it wasn't like a big deal, you know, it wasn't like a weird thing. And you know, my mum used to drop me off and pick me up, and that's when it really all started, you know, like he'd start to talk about, so we'd do the lesson, and then we'd go back into his house and we'd have a drink, non-alcoholic drink like squash or something, and he'd talk about what kind of books I like, what were my hobbies, you know, and then he'd echo back to me and say like, oh, I like reading those books too, and oh, I like that kind of music as well, and you know, getting me to open up about personal life at home and things like that, and starting to build that kind of rapport. And then he started to give me suggestive text messages, and that's basic, that, you know, just built on it, he just kind of built on it. And so it was over a period of from the I'm a December baby, so from the December I turned 18 to literally the August of 2004, like that's when I was first sexually assaulted by him. And I'll never forget the first time it happened. Like I did the lesson with him, and he kept trying to look down my top. He literally kept trying to pull my top down, and I was really embarrassed, like, and just shocked. And I kept just pushing his hand away and being like, oh, he's just being silly, you know. It was really inappropriate, and I just can remember the feeling even now of like how it made me feel. And then, you know, we got back into his house, and he had locked me in the house as well, so I had a feeling of like entrapment there. And yeah, I can remember like he was saying like basically how turned on I was making him, and that I was sitting sort of in his lounge area, which kind of like looked directly into his kitchen area, and he was like having to pace around in the kitchen because of how, like, I suppose turned on he was feeling. And then I remember like I was going to text my mum to be like, oh, you know, I wanted her to hurry up, like basically like come pick me up. And then yeah, he just walked from the kitchen into the living room, and then like that's the first time he sexually assaulted me. But it was just like mass confusion. Like I really just didn't realize what had just happened here, because then I'm thinking, does this mean that he really loves me, and he's, you know, he's really got, you know, feelings for me, and I'm just feeling this way because I've never been touched before and everything else. And I didn't recognize the freeze response because I totally froze. I literally, it was almost like an out of body experience. I literally just froze, felt like I went somewhere else. And it was almost like, oh my god, I just want this to be over type thing. And then when my mum picked me up, I remember just feeling really dirty, like grimy, and just really just horrible. It just felt horrible. And he kept feverishly texting me being like, oh, how are you, and I hope you're okay, and blah blah blah, and I really care about you and everything else. And you know, it was just a ploy to get me to eventually have sexual intercourse with him. And then once, you know, he knew that he'd had my virginity, the whole thing changed, literally. Like it was so fast. You know, it was almost like he'd got his claws in, so then he had all the control. So it was almost like I had, imagine a control panel, and I've just given him the control panel of my life, and he's pushing the buttons and I'm just doing what he says. And I had so much confusion in my head because I'm thinking, here's a guy that really likes me, and, you know, was my martial arts instructor, and I had this really warped belief of like, you know, the Bruce Lee romantic story, like, you know, it's like we're going to have like the successful martial arts school, we both love martial arts, you know, it's going to be really good, and you know, there's romance there, and you know, and everything else. And that's just not what it was at all. You know, it was all about control. And as time went on over this 6-month period, it just got worse and worse, and then nothing I did was good enough. And then I started to feel like I'm doing something wrong. You know, I stopped eating. I felt like I should punish myself, so I used to just excessively train in the gym because I just felt like I need to punish myself. I started to self-harm as well, because I was getting so numb, and I just didn't feel any, I felt nothing, actually just dead inside completely. And it wasn't until well, eventually everything came to a head, and my mum had a massive argument with him, and I left his classes and I never went back. And over a period of next 3 years, intermittently, he'd text me randomly, and I just answer back very bland, like, you know, I wouldn't really like get into a conversation with him. And I was just trying to sort of work out like what's going on with my life now, because my life went on a totally different trajectory, completely removed from martial arts. And I went down the fitness route to become a personal trainer, as my parents were thinking, you know, oh my God, like, what is Emma going to do now? You know, martial arts was always her dream and everything else. And they got me enrolled into, you know, personal training. And I would actually go so far as to say that that did actually save my life. And I did get quite emotional actually when I talk about that. And so eventually he just said one evening, this is like 3 years later, that he really wanted to show me this new martial arts school of his, and then he would take me home. And I'm thinking, maybe he feels bad about what he's done. Maybe that's why he's just kept in touch, because it's you know, he's felt bad about what he's done, and this could be a chance for me to get closure, and, you know, eventually, you know, move on from what's happened. So I arranged to meet him. I was on a late shift working in the gym, and he picked me up from the gym and took me to this new martial arts school, which was on the back of an industrial estate. So it's like 10:30, 11:15 at night at this point. There isn't anybody around, and I started to think, okay, this is a bit sketchy, but just be calm, just relax, you know, just don't freak out, just stay calm. And it wasn't until we got over the threshold of this unit that he'd had transformed into sort of like a martial arts dojo, where he shut and locked the door, that I realized my mistake. And I realized, oh my God, I don't know where I am. I don't know this building. I don't know any way out. And he was very quick. You know, there was an upstairs area that had like a lounge area that pretty much mimicked the type of lounge area that his house had. So immediately I had that triggering me, and he wasted no time. Like, he was literally trying to just pull all my clothes off, and literally was going to sexually assault me right then and there. But because time had gone on, and I actually did do martial arts training with another instructor, who was lovely and amazing, and it was a completely different experience, and I had no trust issues with this guy whatsoever. And he taught everybody that sometimes you have to think your way out of a dangerous situation. And for some reason that popped into my head while this was going on, while he had his hands all over me. And I'm a really bad liar, and I was really terrified. Like, I was in freeze response already, but this thought just kind of broke that just momentarily. And I thought, I've got to think of something. I need to say something. So I basically just lied, and I said, you know, there's been a really bad stomach bug going around the gym, and I've just had it myself, and I'm still not 100%, you know, out the other side of it. And I said, I was just like, you know, and I was actually feeling sick. So he kind of paused for a minute, and then in my mind I was like, oh my God, he doesn't believe me. This is going to be a million times worse for me now. And then I think that turned him off, because he then was like the mood or whatever in his mind was gone. And I then appealed to his ego, and I said, you know, oh, but maybe we should meet up like in the week or something, because I'd never not done something that he wanted me to do. Like, I was literally at his beck and call all the time previously to this. And that's how I got away from him. And it was awful though, because he made himself a drink, a cup of tea. So my mum's feverishly texting me at this point, and she's like, are you coming home anytime soon? Like, what the hell's going on? You were meant to be home hours ago. And I was like, while he was making his cup of tea, I was like, oh my God, he asked me to stay the night as well. So totally against what his intention had been. And he didn't know I told my parents actually that I was going there. And she said, Dad wants to come pick you up. Shall I send Dad to come pick you up now? And I was like, no, it's going up to 3 a.m. I said, we're going to be leaving soon. I said, you know, just, you know, don't worry about it. I'll be home soon. So I had to do small talk with him while he drank his tea, which was really horrible, because I just wanted to get away from him, but I just stayed calm the whole time. And then on the route home, he didn't drive straight to my house. He went to a service station, not to get fuel for his car, but to get packs. And it was almost like he was trying to say to me, you go home when I can say you go home, and not before. And then eventually I did get home, and you know, once I saw him drive away, I just felt so relieved to be home safe and sound. And then I went in the shower because he was wearing a really sickly sweet aftershave, and it was on my skin from where he'd been on me. And I remember just washing that off, and then it did give me a little bit of a boost, because I never got away from him before, and I actually got away from him. Like, I denied him what he wanted, and he didn't get what he wanted from me, and that kind of did give me a little bit of a confidence boost, you could say. And then the next day he just messaged me to invite me to take his dog for a walk around the local park, and I was like, what is wrong with this guy? Like, he was trying to full on sexually assault and rape me like the evening before, and now he wants me to like go and take his dog for a walk like there's nothing wrong. And I said to him, don't ever contact me again. And then he didn't, but it would be another, I think it was like 12 years on from that, until I'd have this conversation with this woman who would then help me to come forward to police about what happened to me, because it was still affecting me. You know, I still replayed the memories, and then I'd have mood swings, and then you know, it would just set me up for the whole day to be like almost like in a bad mood, but I'd never know where that was coming from. And the panic attacks as well, like the panic attacks, the anxiety attacks, it was all linked into this situation I'd been in. And unfortunately I never was able to connect the dots, because I just did not understand what had happened, and it was just all this confusion. And it wasn't until I actually trusted guys again to date that it just made it more alarmingly clear that something that, you know, I had been mistreated, and knew that I just, with every fibre of my being, that I didn't want to have sexual intercourse with this guy. And he must have known that as well. And then the few times that I was able to sort of say no, and I don't want to do this, it just was like a full-on assault. So that kind of taught me that at the time, like, I can't trust men. All men are monsters, bar from my dad, who's an amazing human being and I love the bones of. But, you know, I had, you know, my friends were having really loving relationships, and they, you know, they loved their partners and their boyfriends and everything. And I was just like, I just don't understand, like, what happened to me? Like, why did that happen to me? And I just think it's just because it's the way this guy is wired. And, you know, it's how I explained to the police. I said it's almost like he had Jekyll and Hyde. Like, when just before he was going to sexually assault me, he'd get this look on his face. His whole face would change. His eyes would change. His face would change. And he was literally like a totally different person to this mask he wears during the teaching hours. You know, like very friendly, very approachable, you know, very down to earth, you know, very passionate about self-defense, when actually he's the type of monster that people should be learning to protect themselves from. So yeah, it was a massive journey, but I'm so glad to be here now at this stage of the journey to share the healing side of things, to show everybody that there's power and that we can all use our voice to alleviate ourselves of whatever it is that we've been through. If then we want to go on and share it with a wider audience, then, you know, that's up to us. But I feel strong enough to be able, because I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid of people believing me, not believing me, or fear of judgment of other people. You know, it is what it is. It's happened the way that it happened. And now, you know, I just go on from strength to strength as I heal from this. And that really, a big part of the healing was talking about it.
And it is truly like healing. This is what people need to know, Emma. And thank you again for sharing your story. This is what we see in a lot of people going through trauma, just talking about it, you know, writing about it. You can heal and you can shed the tears that you have suppressed for so long, and nothing happens. You know, you don't have to go to the police. This is what Emma's trying to tell you. But, you know, just not ignoring what happened, just facing it head on and talking to somebody, a friend or a therapist, can really work wonders. But what I think that Emma did incredibly well, you know, by having this courage to coming to go into the police is the fact that this way she stopped this predator, because you heard what she said. He would not stop, and he became controlling. So he was very methodic about what he was doing, and she was not the first, and she was not the last. But hopefully, after she went to the police and they believed her, and then they took measures against this guy, hopefully at one point there was a last woman, in the life of this predator. And this is what we want to achieve with everything that we're doing, with this project, and so many other life coaches all around the world, just trying to empower women, giving them a voice, helping them stand up in their power. And now I am looking over Emma's chapter, and I'm telling you that there is a self-discovery and empowerment journal that Emma has written with a lot of questions and a lot of tips on how you can really, dig deep into your own trauma, but just stay to a level, of still. I would like to address it like being a friend to yourself, like being your own best friend. So this is what Emma has managed to do in her chapter. So thank you again, Emma, for contributing to this amazing book, to being here, to going through this interview and sharing your incredible story about sexual abuse, and, how it all started, what you did, so other women can hopefully, recognize what happened to them, and also say, okay, so this was definitely not good, and it was definitely not my fault, and they can start their healing. I know that in your book, you told us about, 5 personal tips to self-empowerment. I would like you, as a final word to complete our amazing interview, to talk about one of them, like the favorite, your favorite tips to self-empowerment. I think I know which one it is.
Well, I've actually recently just come across, actually it's a technique for helping to, for anybody, for any kind of trauma, like if you're still like replaying things in your mind, so maybe you're having panic attacks or anxiety because you're having really big flashbacks, it can be anything, like a car crash, something that happened to you, and it's it's trauma, and it's a technique called the havening. So people can actually go to YouTube and actually just type in the havening. It's HAVENING, and it's by a psychologist / hypnotherapist guy. A lot of people may have heard of him. It's called Paul McKenna. So back in the day, he used to do like a lot of stage hypnosis as a show, and a bit of fun and entertainment. But now he does a more serious route of like, actual therapy-based hypnotherapy and stuff. So this technique, it just takes 5 minutes. And what it does is it helps to just calm the sympathetic nervous system down, so that you can flood the brain with delta waves. So these are waves that just help to keep you very calm and very relaxed, so that if anything has triggered you in a moment where you're feeling that fight, that flight, that that loss of control, and these can hit you at any time. I used to get like panic attacks in the middle of the supermarket, or if you're at work, it's so inconvenient because it's really inconvenient to have a panic attack in the middle of work. You can just take yourself away to the bathroom, like the ladies or the gents, and you can just do this technique. And I found that in conjunction with the tips that I share in the book, this has been like my most powerful thing moving forward. So yeah, that's what I know it's not in the book, but it's a tip that I really wanted to share with everybody here this evening. And it's just called The Havening by Paul McKenna. And you can find it on YouTube. He literally just talks you through the whole thing. It takes like 5 minutes, and just see like if you feel any alleviation from those kind of fight or flight feelings, which then may even give people confidence to then start to talk about trauma that they've been through. So yeah, that's my tip for this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much. So The Happening. I hope you will write about it in your bigger book, when you will talk about your whole story, and of course about your experience as a trauma coach, because of course we're better to you know, guide the women through this process, and, you know, a victim of sexual abuse who has regained her power and really knows, you know, how to get better and how to really start living life without this constant fear and self-doubt.
I mean, I just wanted to add, Laura, as well, when you talk about regaining myself, like my inner power again, like you just reminded me, actually, I had this experience where I had a memory of who I was like before the abuse happened. And I remembered like how I felt as a person before that all happened to me. And it was like a fragment of myself that I'd lost, that I didn't even realize I'd lost. And it was like reconnecting with that part of myself. And that totally blew my mind, because I was like, oh my God, I lost that part of myself and I wasn't even aware that she even went anywhere. And then I reconnected back to it, and now I'm literally like fully fledged myself again now. Like I'm 100% me again. You know, I don't have this broken part of me that has been distant for me for like near on 20 years. You know, that reconnection was just so powerful. And I've heard from a lot of trauma victims that actually who do this now, and they talk about that you get this split, you can get this split in your personality where you kind of, you're disassociated from your life at a certain point, and it's about just reconnecting. So yeah, that was amazing. So like when I talk to people now, or integrate, or just have an experience like the one we're having right now with an interview, like I am just 100% myself. So I'm able to be like my 100% authentic self and just speak my truth openly and candidly with you, because the fear has ameliorated, like the fear of judgment of others, you know, it's just gone, because the truth is the truth at the end of the day. And you know, I just want to be able to move forward with that message, that, you know, there's nothing to fear in the truth. I know that it's a famous saying, like, you know, you don't have anything to fear from the truth, but I think the fear actually comes from what it would mean if you were to speak the truth. And then it's on kind of recognizing that fear and dealing with that fear, which for me was fear of judgment of others and not being believed, that then we can get to the truth of what the actual response would be. And that was for me that the police believed me, action was taken, and yeah, so here I am now talking to you about it.
And what a powerful message. The truth is the truth, and there's so much power behind it. So ladies, you know, just stick to your truth and really own, you know, own your truth and own your power, because this is the only way, you know, that you can live as yourself, as your authentic self. Today, you know, you present yourself and you think about who you want to be in the future. And if you want to be happy in the future, then you have to start working, you know, on that today. And the only way is to start accepting the truth, start talking your truth, and it will get better. If you think you are alone, you are not. Emma is just, you know, another example. You know, you can hold hands. She is your sister on this matter, and you can talk to her. You will meet Emma again at the live launch on the 15th of July at 2 p.m. Central European Time. Emma will talk more about her story, and of course she will have some presents for you, so stay tuned, because I know she has a lot of stuff, a lot of amazing, you know, lessons to give to the world, to give to other victims of abuse, so we can start living a happy and healthy life. Thank you again for being here, Emma Hillman from Spain. And thank you again for this amazing audience. Hope to see you again tomorrow during our next interview with another amazing co-author. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much again, Laura, for the invitation to hold space with you all this evening. I do hope that, you know, even if it just helps one person, it just gives somebody just enough confidence to actually talk about what they've been through, and they start that healing journey, then it makes this all worth it 100%. So yeah, thank you all so much for you know, hearing my story and listening to my message behind it. And thank you, Laura, as well, for inviting me to be part of the project, and for doing the interview process with me as well. It's been a pleasure. It really has. Thank you.
Thank you again, Emma. Together we can change the world. So have an incredible evening, guys. Bye bye from Germany and from Spain. Bye bye.